Hi all, welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast. We've got 2 days to preview for you, 2 ITV days. There's plenty of good stuff coming your way, and Newbury and Newcastle take centre stage. Newcastle, of course, on Saturday. We've got a couple of days in Newbury to preview for you. We've got an excellent jumps team assembled for you. Steve Jones, Dan Overall, Donn McClean are all along. Well, we've got Don with us, actually. I might ask you for a line on how the Matchbook Cheltenham Trail is going. I've listened to episode 1. Genuinely thought it was excellent, very insightful. Lots of interesting underbet trends, re the festival and the sort of key races we've had going forward to that. And I thought yours and Matt's analysis were very good. Don, you enjoying it?
It's great, Tom. Like some of Matt's stats are brilliant. Some of the trends that you wouldn't have even thought of. The strength of that handicap hurdle at Haydock there at the weekend, and as a pointer towards the Cheltenham Festival, I hadn't capped that until we were live on air. But no, look, it's we're talking about races that are going to be pointing towards Cheltenham and other big races along the way. So what's not to like about that?
Yeah, and fundamentally, it's a great use of another word for road. I thought trail is
it's a good one.
Is good,
One that you wouldn't have thought of, really. Trail.
No. The path to Prestbury Park.
Oh, that's good.
But it's not as good as a road. But a trail I like. It's versatile. Dan Overall, how are you?
Yeah, very well. Yeah, likewise on that show, I've been really enjoying it. Some of the stats Matt's comes out with are just absolutely outrageous. But so, especially with a view to like handicaps and things like that, I absolutely love that, because I mean I can't stop thinking about Cheltenham handicaps. So I'm glad someone like Matt shares my obsession and just fuels it further. Really good listen.
I went through years of being like, you can't talk about Cheltenham to the new year. Now I just embrace it. Ultimately, that is what the jump season is all about. So I'm afraid if you don't like it, then you just have to cop it, because that's where that's what it is. I don't know whether Steve Jones agrees. Do you agree, Steve?
Yeah, I was in Cheltenham 2 days ago having my hair cut, so I'm all about Cheltenham at the moment.
Good. What did you ask for?
Mario, I'll give you a mention, Mario.
Good old Mario.
He's raging because the next bloke didn't turn up. It's bad form, that.
That's poor, because ultimately that's time is money for Mario, and he's now not getting paid for that.
He rang him up and then he blocked him. He asked me if I wanted to press the button to block the bloke, but I couldn't do it to him.
Excellent. Well, we should all get our hair cut in Cheltenham. Adam says, afternoon, guys. Appreciate the stream and the upcoming tips. You haven't heard him yet, Adam. Trevor says, cold outside, having a mug of coffee and carrot cake watching this. Bliss. Trevor, confirmed carrot cake is the best cake. It's as simple as that. And Sai says, good afternoon. What's the latest with the Newbury meet tomorrow and Coral Gold Cup on Saturday? With this weather, will it go ahead? We're okay, aren't we, Steve? I know there's concern. I'm not expecting it to succumb to the frost. Do you?
No, they got the covers down. I think it'd be interesting to see what the situation is tomorrow, because if the forecast is very low, I don't know whether they not want to take the covers off on Friday. But yeah, I don't anticipate any problems. But then I have been wrong in the past.
It happened once last year, didn't it? They took the covers off and raced on the Friday. I can't remember exactly where, and then they lost the Saturday. But it's difficult you can't forgo the first day just to protect the second day. There we are. Anyway, we digress. A shout out to Charlie Post, who on last week's podcast absolutely nailed his bets. He did so well, we didn't invite him back this week. So well done to Charlie. He just smashed in a load of winners. And about time too. I don't know why I'm being mean about him. I love him and he did really well. There we are. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy all of our content. That's across all podcasts as well, with the likes of the Premier League going strong, NFL and plenty more besides. Okay, we're going to get stuck straight into the previews. So we've got Friday and Saturday coming your way. Friday, first of all, this is a Phillies juvenile kicking things off. Gordon Elliott doubly represented. And I will get the prices up shortly, but I'm not really sure. I think, Steve, it's only you with a bet, because Tom, Don, and Dan are all no bets. For all Wood Who gets a mention from Don, and I can see that she's going to head the betting. But Steve, you have an official selection at 10.0. Take it away.
Yeah, I would say that this probably is more of a place bet than a win bet, but when I do place bets only, they tend to win. So I would go small win and a bigger place, maybe one part win, 3 parts place on Ragacina, who was a winner on the flat and was fairly consistent on the flat. That was when trained by James Ferguson. Was certainly tried up to 1 mile and 6, but certainly stayed 1 mile and 4. So just the type to go hurdling, and ran really well first time out behind more experienced horses that had already run mostly over hurdles. So she was a little bit keen, and she was out the back, and she made a respectable hurdles debut at Musselburgh, where you don't really want to be off the pace too far. And I just thought that in a race that lacked a bit of depth, I thought Ragacina was very solid as a place bet.
Don, just tell me about Woodhoo and your sort of weight of expectation, and I guess with a view on where she might end up. Do we think she could be a Triumph filly, or are we not expecting that?
I think she's going to have to improve again, Tom, a bit. Like, on the face of it, it was a bit disappointing that she only scraped home last time at Down Royal in the juvenile hurdle there. She was a 4-1 on shot that day, but she only got home from Cossack of Joseph O'Brien's, and he could be good. He goes in the Grade 3 juveniles hurdle at Ferryhouse on Sunday at the big meeting, the Big Hatton's Grace hurdle meeting, and that's a race that is a really good pointer to the future. And the pair of them finished well clear. So I thought she showed a lot of grit to get the better of him, and he might be a wee bit better than we thought going into the race. Like, she's an ex-Michael Stout trained filly. She had a mark in the 70s, but she's improved for joining Gordon Elliott. I suppose her best run was at Punchestown last month when she won by a long distance, and maybe didn't go forward to the degree that you expected her to go forward the last 8 Down Royal. But I still think there should be plenty more to come from her. And interestingly, almost directly after the Down Royal race, Gordon said that the Newbury race was the race for her. So he's had this in mind for her since then. And yeah, I think she could step forward again.
All right, we're going to move on. Not the strongest betting opinions there. For all Steve had a shout. We have a slightly stronger opinions on the Coral John Francombe Novices Chase. It's formerly known as the Berkshire Novices Chase, 2.5 miles. Some good horses have won this in the past, and we've got a Group 1 winning hurdler in there in the form of Hermes Allen, who is 2.25. Nickelback is 5.0. Marble Sands is 8.0. 9.0 for Colonel Mustard, and 11.0 tighten our belts. No Ordinary Joe is 12.0. We've got a couple for Marble Sands, couple for Hermes Allen. Steve, you and I agree, and Hermes Allen was I can't remember how we framed it, but sort of, class horse to follow this year, because I think he'll mop up a good few novice chases, and I think he'll win at least one top level novice chase, but could easily come unstuck against the best of the Irish at the festival. Well, you don't have concerns for him for your selecting him. He's had his win done. I was a huge fan of his last year, and his best performance came at this track.
Yeah, that's the Challow winners, and he was a very impressive winner of the Challow. Don't have a very good record when they go to the Cheltenham Festival for whatever reason. And he did, even though he went off favourite, he ran pretty much below par there, but he bounced back at Aintree, was third to Irish Point there, and he just looks like a horse that's going to improve going over fences. And although he hasn't had a run over fences, which is a bit of a worry, it's kind of like a process of elimination. And the other thing to note is that Paul Nicholls does tend to run his better or best novices in this race. They haven't won recently, but Stage Star was runner-up in this last year. The year before there, Pictory was a faller when likely to win, or certainly had a very good chance of winning. And Nickelback will set a really good pace here, which I think will help these novices. Certainly, I think if you're going over fences first time, I think horses make mistakes a lot of the time because they're going too slow and too careful. And Nickelback's done all his winning on sharper tracks, and a big track like Newbury, I think he'll just give this lot a lovely lead. And Hermes Allen is a top class prospect, already a Grade 1 winner, and I don't think that there would be any danger of Hermes Allen going into this had he not schooled very well.
Yeah, he. I mean, the form of that Newbury win. I think it's worth pointing out the Challow win that he did race on the correct part of the track, and anything that raced near side was fairly stuffed. But the form is rock solid. Obviously, you wear it well, finishing second, passing well, finishing fourth, and passing well, bumped into an absolute world beater last time in the form of Psycho. Just to get within a few lengths of that horse is that's top level form. If you're obviously listening to this on the podcast, you'll see that Dan Overall is laughing away, and that's not a true statement. But also you've got Crambo in there, who's rated 140 plus, who raced on the wrong part of the track. But I mean, it is deep form. I guess my one slight concern, and I am selecting Hermes Allen, who's had his win done. I think he'll be ready first up, and he is that typical sort of Challow winner for Nicholls, who will go on, and I'm not certain he'll turn into like an out-and-out stayer necessarily. He's not built like some of the horses that Nicholls has won a Challow with and then turned into staying chasers. But I think he'll make a very, very good chaser, and the way he'll be campaigned this year, I think he in comparison to the back end of last season, I wouldn't be too harsh on him. But I guess my one concern, or my slight concern, Dan, overall for my selection is just how he copes with the early part of the race. If Nickelback, who jumps well and is likely to go forward, just puts his jumping under pressure. That's the slight concern I've got. But anyway, who are you with?
Well, yeah, I'd agree with you on that. And to be honest, that's kind of the reason I looked away from him. I don't think we've had a Chase debutant winner win this since Coneygree, I think in 2014. And there have been a few decent ones that have tried. So it is a very stiff test, Newbury as well, to go without any starts over fences. So that does concern me, especially as you say, with the likes of Nickelback. Tighten Our Belts, also another forward goer. Hermes Allen obviously showed a lot of his best form when he went forward. So the tactical angle for this, I think, is quite interesting. In general, I think it's a really interesting race. And we often bemoan British novice chases, but I think this is actually quite a good one. Obviously, there's not much to separate them on ratings. I think No Ordinary Joe is a horse I'm interested with, maybe to a view to the future and maybe handicaps down the line. I think he put a lot of things together towards the back end of last season, but again, Chase debutant. So the one I was really more taken with was Marble Sands, who I don't think was expected to win on his Chase debut because he was extremely weak in the market. I think he went off 11-1, and given that he was clearly the class horse in that race and a handicap, that was a ridiculous price if they knew he was really fighting fit. So the fact that he was able to win over 2 miles of air, which is definitely on the sharp side for him, I think he'd probably get 3 miles without a little issue. I think that was a really impressive performance. Jumped really well, came from off the pace to beat 2 horses who were up there throughout. Really taken by that. And I think the way this race will be run will definitely suit him. I say that chase experience does help. And he's always been a horse they've held in high regard. Graham McPherson in particular, obviously, he joined forces with Thurgood last year. But even when he was with Graham McPherson a couple of seasons ago, he always thought a lot of him. I think he's now just starting to realise that potential. And I think staying on strongly from a strong pace on good ground, I think that's really going to suit him. So I think he's got a pretty decent chance in what is admittedly a very interesting and competitive race. What
do you want to add, Don?
Yeah, I agree with an awful lot of that. I think it's a good race. Probably a better race than suggested by a 5-4 favourite. Like Tighten Our Belts was really impressed with me at Ludlow last time in his chasing debut. No Ordinary Joe, he travelled like the most likely winner in the Martin Pipe Hurdle into the home straight. Looked like he was going to win it. He was only just outstayed by Iroko in the end, so he's interested in going over fences. Colonel Mustard, if he could translate his hurdles form to chasing, and he might still do that, he'd be a really interesting chaser for the season ahead. But yeah, I agree with Marble Sands. Like what he did it there was very good, and he probably the reason why he was weak in the market is because he was running over 2 miles. Like he ran in the Sefton Hurdle at Aintree over 3. He ran in the Ballymore Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival against Ampere Pass. So that's the kind I know he was a big price for both of those races, but that's the kind of standard that he was aiming at last season. And over 2 miles, he was in among horses as well. He jumped well. He stayed on really well. And you know that he's going to be better going out and trip. And with that run under his belt as well, the fact that we know that he jumps. And yeah, agree with what Dan said about the way the race is going to be run, a fast pace over 2.5. That should suit him well. And yeah, you can see him moving into the race. And even on ratings, he doesn't have that much to find with Hermes Allen and Hurdle's ratings. So yeah, I think he's a big player in the race. Okay,
we're done there on the what looks a good renewal of the John Frankham, or the Berkshire. The 140 at Newbury is, I'll try again. The 225 at Newbury is the Coral Racing Club handicap chase over 2.5. Ferrero Bamboo is 4.5, as is Can Do Kid. They've come a little bit closer than when I looked earlier on, where Can Do Kid was a point or so bigger. Sail Away, 7.0. Iron Bridge is 8.0. The Big Bite, 9.0. Bigger prices the rest. Dan, over to you.
Yeah, this Can Do Kid has frustrated me so far. And I think he's frustrated everyone, including his connections, because he's clearly got a fair bit of ability and just hasn't managed to win the races he should have. On his chase debut behind Nickelback, he never really had a chance, was never put into the race, but I was really impressed with the way he jumped. I thought that was a perfect building block to a successful chasing campaign. And last time out, I thought this is the race for him. It was a modest enough race. I think he was just ridden with a bit too much confidence. The winner was Venetia Williams' horse, who made all. He got to close enough, and I am slightly concerned about his attitude at this stage, given he does seem to have a habit of not winning, and he didn't have too many reasons for not doing it last time out, other than maybe just a lack of experience and maybe ridden a bit too confidently. But he's gone up £6 for that narrow second last time out, which isn't ideal, but I do think there's still room in this mark, 129. And I found it interesting that after he got narrowly beaten last time out, Harry Cobden, normally quite a composed individual, was clearly frustrated and went to the stewards to appeal the result, trying to say that he got interfered with. He didn't really. It was minor at best, and there was no way it was getting overturned. But I think that kind of shows you that he thinks he should have won that race. He's definitely got races like this in him. And the horse that was 30 lengths behind him in third that day, Arjet, has already won again since. So it looks really solid form for the level. I'd be hoping he can improve again, and I think they're looking for a bit of redemption this time out.
Okay, that's Can Do Kid. I know somebody else that really fancies that horse as well, who I think you might know, who tried to steer me towards him. And he's tempting. I'm playing it a bit safer. Steve isn't, though. What about Can Do?
A bit frustrated about this race because I would have been all over Houdini at the bottom. I think he had the perfect setup in this. They're going to go a really strong pace. And I thought that was the race for him, but he's going to run up at Doncaster, I think, or is it Musselburgh? One of the two. So, yeah, Can Do Kid is the one that I came down on. I'm not convinced I trust him all that much, but I'm willing to give him another chance after bumping into one of Venetia Williams a couple of weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. In her horses have obviously been in huge form, and the pair of them were a mile clear, so Can Do Kid, but I think it's a missed opportunity for Houdini.
All right, Houdini. Yeah, that's Doncaster, the preferred engagement on the same day. I'm with Iron Bridge. I'll come in next. It's not the strongest shout. I guess Ferrero Bamboo, I think, ultimately just wants a slightly easier surface than perhaps he's going to get, and I thought he was short enough. Can Do Kid. Well, I felt like if I put him up, I was stealing this other person's selection, but also I don't know. I've a couple of seconds now this season. He's short enough. Sail Away, first go of the season, was half interesting, but I thought Iron Bridge was the one at the distance who was well worth a play at 8.0. Iron Bridge, who has shaped as though a return to this distance is going to suit. He dropped back in distance at the back end of last year at Warwick and looked as though he wanted a little bit further, and then ran really well here last time. It's probably a bit of a bit of place thievery, but I would much rather back him to place than I would the top two in the betting anyway. So Iron Bridge for me, given that he ticks the distance boxes and is relatively consistent. Don, you're with Sail Away.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting race, and it's I think it's a competitive race, and it's not a very strong shout for Sail Away. I think the Big Bite could run well. He loves Newbury. He won the Greatwood Gold Cup there back in March, and he probably would have won it the year before as well had he not tried to jump the water jump again. But I think he's an older horse. I just think Sail Away, there's more to come from. I think Sail Away, there's more to come from him this season, maybe over further, and maybe with this run under his belt. So I just think he's an interesting horse. I thought he'd be a wee bit shorter than he is. I think he's a fairly fashionable horse. I just thought he'd be a bit shorter than he is. He's had his win operation. The Dan Skelton horses, they're going well. Maybe his wins to runs ratio is not that strong, but a lot of his horses are finishing second or third, and he had a good weekend last weekend. So I think Sail Away, maybe the trip might be on the sharp side. and maybe he's a horse who'll improve with this run and going forward. But I think he's an interesting horse for the season. And yeah, I just thought he might outrun his odds tomorrow before tomorrow before stepping out in trip later in the season.
All right, moving on to the 3 o'clock. So this is the long distance, and it's caused some surprises in the past, but some favourites have gone in, and 1.9 is Marie's Rock, who surely is the form pick based upon that Aintree second, where it looks as though she might win. There was probably outstayed by Sire du Burlay. Paisley Park, the 11-year-old, is 4.0. Dashel Drasher is 5.0. Flight Deck 21.0. Bigger price is the final 3. So the 3 of you have gone for good old Dashel Drasher, whose performances at the distance have proved that ultimately he doesn't stay. Dan.
Yeah, well, you've gone for Flight Deck, or you'll get to. I'm sure you'll make a very convincing case about how this horse who needs to find £20 at the age of 9 and sold for £5,000 recently can do so. So I look forward to that comprehensive argument. But on Dashel Drasher, the most likely winner, as the rest of us agree, I think you could just put a line for his run last time out. He's always comes on for his reappearance. It's very much known for him. I think if he's going to be able to beat Marie's Rock, it's going to be at this time of the year while she hasn't had a run. They have met a couple of times in the past. Obviously, I think in Aintree, Marie's Rock was well ahead. Also in the Rail Kill, I think they met on the same terms as they were going to race off on Saturday. And again, Marie's Rock finished ahead. But on that occasion, it was 2.5 miles. And on the latter, it was the end of a long season for Dashel Drasher. He had a lot of very tough races. I think you can almost just put a line through that run as well. Obviously, he is getting on a bit, but I think with that run under his belt, these are the types of races he's going to be able to win. If we're going further along in the year, if you're looking for a Stayers Hurdle contender, it's probably not going to be him you're looking at come the 11 years of age. It's going to be more your Marie's Rock types. But if he's going to be able to beat her, it's going to be here. It's going to be with a run under his belt. And I just thought at 5.0, I thought he was just a bit too big in the market.
Okay. Don on the Drash.
The Drash, yeah. Look, he's just a really consistent horse, isn't he? He did look the winner of the Stayers Hurdle when he hit the front last year, just run down in the end by remarkable spring-heeled Sire du Burlay. I thought his run at Wetherby wasn't a bad run, and he is a horse who always comes on for his seasonal return. I think he's only won once over hurdles on a seasonal return, and that was when he beat Vada Rev by a couple of lengths. It was rated like £20 inferior to him. So he is a horse who'll come on. I think 3 miles at Newbury suits him well. I do think he stays the trip. And Marie's Rock, while her only run over 3 miles was in the Liverpool Hurdle when she was outside by Sire du Burlay, this is her first run back. And again, I think Dashel Drasher with that run under his belt, I think he's generally a light horse, but maybe under bet on occasion because he probably doesn't win as often as his talent suggests he should, but he does run well. And yeah, I thought the fact that he's third favourite in behind Marie's Rock and Paisley Park, I would have had him closer to Marie's Rock in the betting than he is. Okay,
and Steve, I'm just going to read Dashel Drasher's 6 starts. Oh no, more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 starts over the furthest he's ever run over. So 2 miles 6, he was beaten by 2 for Gold. Headed final stride. 2 miles 6.5 at Newbury.
Heavy ground.
Hang on. Can we mute? Is it normally you're bloody muted? No, you're interrupting. 2 miles 6.5 at Newbury. Headed last, no match for winner. Wetherby, weakened run in. Cheltenham with Sire du Burlay, drifted right towards finish, just held second, finished second, placed third, reinstated a second after appeal. Ultimately was completely bollocks at the finish. The next one over 3 miles, no extra final 110 yards. Aintree, weakened approaching last, and then subsequent to that over fences, headed approaching last. Go on, Steve.
Well, he stays 3 miles as well as Marie's Rock does, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What did Dashel Drasher do to you, Tom? Because this is a lot of research. It's a lot of research every run to really give out to this horse.
I just like poking fun at the team's team. It's just. I mean, it'll come back to bite me in the bum, but it's fun. Go on, Steve. Make your selection.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to just talk on for the next half hour. He's so tough, this horse. He'll get his own way out in front. He's had a run. like Don said, and he obviously doesn't stay 3 miles because he was beaten 3/4 of a length in the Stayers Hurdle.
Yeah.
So
you said it.
Paisley Park was miles behind. Flooring Porter was miles behind. Well, 4 lengths behind. And although he was put back to third, that's that. And with Marie's Rock as well, she's got a penalty, so she only gets a pound off most of them, bar Paisley Park. So I don't like betting mares with virtually at level weights against the boys. Certainly not those price. So I think it's a no-brainer. Paisley Park, you never really know what you're going to get with him. He generally runs Newbury quite well, but he was beaten in this race when favourite a couple of years ago, and it wouldn't have been as competitive. So I'd want to take him on. I want to take Marie's Rock on, and Drasher. It stays 3 miles just about and well enough to win this, having got an easy time of it on the lead.
Now my case for Flight Deck at 21.0, trained by Deborah Cole, who in 2021 said she was left absolutely amazed after Haraki Golf secured her first winner under rules in more than 20 years. But recently, Deborah's been absolutely flying. And this horse ran a big race in behind Highland, who I fancy to go in again at 67.0 on first start for the yard. And I think he's overpriced again. It's a race which has thrown up the odd surprise in the past. I didn't want to back Marie's Rock for the reasons that you guys have outlined. I didn't want to back Paisley Park at the right young age of 11. I really don't know what Paisley Park's going to get out of bed. And I found it fun to take on Dashra Drasher. So win place bet with Flight Deck. And I think you'll agree that's a pretty strong case.
Yeah,
the concerning thing is
flying.
It's
I
about
like
the same
that.
script as Psycho's argument, and he won, which is really concerning me. The weaker your arguments, the better they run.
Absolutely flying. 3 winners this year.
Yep.
2 from the same horse.
Debs.
I don't doubt that Deborah Cole is a good trainer, but absolutely flying is stretching it a tad, I think. But best of luck.
Well, I'm going to be honest there. I'm going to be honest. I thought she was 2 from her last 2, but I missed the naught on the end of the one at Huntingdon, so it was 10th. So let's move on. 21.0. Stranger things have happened. Not covered myself in glory there. Okay, the 335. Dan, I'm going to come to you straight away. I've followed you in, but was Ho Jolly Smoke one of your horses you put up this year? Is that right?
He was on cheap plug. He was on my racing TV series of the Winners Monster Watch season. So I've tracked him for a while. I've been looking forward to him getting in a handicap, and he finally gets the opportunity. Novice form from last season reads really well. He was second to Making Your Mind Up, who is now rated 132. That was Ho Jolly Smoke's rules debut. Tighten Belts, who obviously goes in the grade 2 earlier on the card, was back in 4th. He was then third to Doyen Star and Krebilly over 2 miles when he just didn't want to be dropped back in trip. Still ran very well. Those two are very nice horses in their own right. You can put a line through the pulled up at Kelso because he actually travelled really nicely into that race. Just made a mistake 3 out and was almost instantly pulled up. Harry looked down just to look after him. There was nothing amiss, but it was just very on the conservative side to make sure there was nothing wrong with him. He then had a really encouraging reappearance behind Masaccio and beat the bat at Chepstow. See, Masaccio, I think, runs on the Saturday under a penalty in the novice hurdle at Newbury and beat the bat 1 at Ascot at the weekend. So that looks like a decent run. And he's shaped like a lot of Dan Skelton's were at the time. Looked like he was going to finish 6th or 7th. Really looked in need of the run, but then rallied really strongly over 2.5 miles. He's by Black Sam Bellamy. His dam is a half sister to a 3-mile winner. He looks a 3-miler. And I'd be very disappointed if he can't be at least a little bit better than a Mark 118. Yeah,
I'm absolutely following you in with 118. I was all set to put up Highland, who you're playing guessing games with a few of these. I mean, Highland ticks so many boxes, given that we know that the distance is absolutely fine. He's in winning form, and there was a good bit left, I thought, last time for a £6 rise. But Ho Jolly Smoke off 118. Where the trip should really suit, I'd just rather back at nearly twice the price is all it is. Dom.
Yeah, I like Ramo. I thought he was a progressive horse at the end of last season. And on a seasonal return at Ludlow, he was probably racing over the trip short of his best, over 2 miles 5.5 in an amateur jockey's handicap hurdle. But Lucy Turner got him out in front, and he made just about all the running still on well. He actually made a pretty bad mistake at the final flight, but he kept on well from there. The filly, or the mare, finished second, Midnight Reflection. She went to Ascot at the weekend and won a good mare's handicap hurdle off a slightly higher mark. Now, maybe she might have improved as well for the step up to 3 miles that day, but the form received a nice boost. I think Ranway, he's only 6. He's got a nice progressive profile. He seems to have started off this season where he left off last season, and there's every chance he'll come forward again. A £5 hike for that win the last day wasn't overly harsh in the light of Midnight Reflections win as well. So I think he can come forward again, and I think he can come forward by more than the £5 by which he was raised. The good to soft ground will be ideal, and the step up to 3 miles as well, that should suit him back to probably his right trip, as opposed to the last day it was just on the short side for him. So yeah, I think he's a player.
And Steve.
Yeah, a bit of a chance this one, because he's a big price, 41.0. Espoir de Rome, who in his pomp, he looked like he was going to be a really good chaser, but he took a bad fall when about to win the Grade 1 up at Aintree, the Novice Chase, which Chantry House went on to win a couple of years ago. And he didn't really rediscover his form over fences. Last season, there was a lot of promise over hurdles. I thought he was runner-up at Ascot behind the horse of Paul Nichols's. And then he went on to finish third to Twig. A bit more about him later. But this season, he had one run, came back from a breathing operation, had one run, finished down the field, really, of the finishers, behind Highland in that very competitive race at Cheltenham in the October meeting. Last season, Kim Bailey's horses weren't right at all. And this season, they are in incredible form. I think he's going at about 33% strike rate in this month. He's banging in the winners all over the place. Espoir de Rome is extremely well handicapped on his chase form. He's well enough handicapped on his hurdles form from last season. So I think there should be a lot of pace in this as well, which would be ideal for him. If he can get into a rhythm early and he can just pick his way through. If the ability is still there, and I think it probably is, then that 41.0 winning place is going to be very big, I think.
Yeah, I was with the horse last time, but didn't show a huge amount. But I totally see the angle, Stephen. Could easily be could easily be well treated.
The piss.
Yeah, I mean, I'll counter that by saying, obviously, because I was with the horse last time, I fundamentally don't want him to win this time. But at that sort of price, we'll give it a good old plug on the socials if he does. Are we done there? We are, aren't we? Everyone had a go. Okay, we're going to come on to the big one, the Coral Gold Cup. So this is the 250. We'll get to prices when you put the horses up, but we do have agreement here. Steve first of all, then I'll go over to Dan. The big one on Saturday, the 250, the Coral Gold Cup.
That's the producer's fault. He didn't unmute me. It wasn't me. It was Dan. So, yeah, this is always a race which is obviously hugely competitive. But there's always a few at the top of the betting that are a bit too short, and it means that others further down have to be a bit bigger. And Twig, I think, is really, really interesting. A horse that came from point to points. It's owned by Bo and Luca Morgan's parents. And I think they bought it just so that their lads could have something to ride. And he's been an incredible success. He's been prolific over fences and hurdles. He was mostly over hurdles last season, and he did very, very well. He's very consistent as well. And he won 3 times from 6 starts over hurdles and was runner-up in a couple of the others. He was going into the summer because he does like decent ground. So the ground should be fine for him. It's not. There's not any rain on the horizon, and although you hear people say, it's going to be sticky, it's sticky. And apparently, according to my time guru or gurus, Mark Holder and Andrew Lowry, there's never been a race run that has got faster for rain. And so all that nonsense it's good to soft good in places, or it might even be the other way around by Saturday. And that will suit Twig, who ran really well. And this horse travels like a good horse, like a horse that can handle a step up in grade. And what he did last time at Cheltenham was probably a career best in finishing second to Waka Clan in a race which is likely to be very similar to the Coral Gold Cup, in that they're going to go a proper gallop, because they went a real gallop in this race in October, set by the winner, who on that track probably had an advantage by setting that decent gallop, because he sorted a few of them out, and you want to be somewhere near the pace. But Twig travelled as well or better than anything, and to finish second, beat 3 lengths, I thought was a really good effort. And the fact that was his first run since July, and it might just have been to put the edge on him for this. And he'll be one of those that's travelling. Bo Morgan, who rides him, is a really good jockey, and £5 claim is a bonus for him. He's going to have a lightweight. I presume he can do the low weight, but it doesn't matter if he can't, because I think Twig has the gears to win a race like this.
That's interesting on Bo Morgan. Lowest riding weight 9.12. He's got to do 10.2, so he might be a pound over with the.
He's got to do 9.11.
Yeah, with the foot. Yeah, so he might be a pound over. So
I wouldn't worry. His brother obviously struggled way more than with his weight than sadly than he does. But he's a very, very good rider, and Ben Pauling rates him very highly. And he's on a horse that travels really well and jumps really well, and it's got everything you need for this race. He's
26.0, Dan.
Yeah, in a race like this, when you can make a case of so many, I didn't think we'd have an agreement, let alone at one such a big price. But I really have warmed to Twig over the last couple of days, going through this race over and over again. I just almost kept coming back to him. I think you kind of dismiss him initially, just think, oh, he's been there, he's a bit exposed, but he's actually one of the least exposed in the entire field. He's only had 6 starts over the fences. He's got a host of pointing experience, admittedly, but only 6 starts over the fences under rules, yet to be out the first 2 in any of them. Obviously did win the Summer Cup at Uttoxeter, which tends to be a pretty decent race. And as Steve mentioned, this is a horse who definitely wants quicker ground, which by all accounts we should be getting. That's a massive coup for him, really, in a race like this. I thought that run at Cheltenham, like Steve mentioned, that was very good, because the ground had definitely gone near a soft by that stage. Only 5 of the 14 finished. The rest were pulled up. It was not good ground, as it will appear on the race card. It was definitely got testing. And I think he was almost minded slightly with that in mind. He wasn't put into the race at an early stage when the winner made all. I think it was a very considerate ride, a good ride. And it also means he hasn't gone up massively in the weights as a result. I think if you one of those people who looks at the trends for these big handicaps, he hits a lot of them. And so he's, the fact he's such a big price, I think is quite interesting, really. I think he's just being overlooked. Obviously, still lightly raced over fences, had a prep run with a good result, which has been crucial in recent years. He's 8 years old, so not overexposed by any stretch of the imagination. He's won at Newbury. He's a prominent racer. And Ben Pauling's form is just starting to turn around. He normally starts the season really quickly. Hasn't really been the case this year, but he's just starting to find a bit of form. And I think Twig is often a horse who's improved for his first run after a break as well. So I think pretty much everything is in place for a really big run from Twig.
2 shouts for Twig at 26.0. Don, your selection is 15.0, Stolen Silver.
Yeah, look, it's a fascinating race, this, for me. Like, I'm sure we've all been looking over it for the last little while. But you obviously you start off by looking at for the second season chasers, but the very best second season chasers, they're not in it. The RSA Chase winner, the Turners winner, even the National Hunt Chase winner, like they're not here. So, I think maybe because everybody knows it's a second season chasers race, they tend to be overbet. You can see the case for Malheur Mission. He may or may not have won the National Hunt Chase last March had he not fallen at the second last fence. And he had a good prep run at Carlisle over a trip that's on the sharp side for him, and he could prove to be very good. Although the yard's form is a wee bit of a concern. All right, Bombay Genius was all the rage for this for ages, and then I think you can allow him as run at Ascot the last day. He was travelling well when he made that bad mistake, so I think you can give him another chance in the form of his Ultimate Chase run. That's obviously been enhanced again by the runner-up Fast or Slow winning the John Durkin Chase there last weekend. Complete Unknown. Not sure if you wouldn't want the ground to be softer than it's going to be. But I just think Stolen Silver, like, first look, he's exposed, but he's not exposed at the trip. Like, he's all kind of 2.5 mile, but his when he stepped up to 3 miles the last day at Chepstow, he put up a really impressive performance, one of the most impressive of his career. And the runner-up T Clipper came out since and was only just beaten by Hold That Thought at Ascot next time. So look, he got a £7 hike for that, which is not ideal, but he's only 8. And, you kind of think he's been around for a long time, but he is only an 8-year-old. There could be more to come from him over the trip. And a lot of his best form is at Cheltenham or Chepstow, undulating tracks, but he has form on flat tracks as well. He won a Rossington Main Hurdle. He beat Edwardson actually in a Rossington Main Hurdle at Haydock on a flat track, and he's got form at Wincanton as well. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But I just think that he won with so much in hand the last day. You couldn't argue with the £7 hike, and there could be a bit more from him to come from him at the trip. And Sam Tristan-Davis rides him in preference to Our Power. I'm not sure he would have had the choice, but it's good that he's retaining the partnership with him. Our Power has a chance as well. He loves the track, but yeah, I think Stolen Silver has been a wee bit overlooked.
And the horse I'm going for is a half decent price as well. I mean, obviously he was hugely disappointing. This is a Hoy Senior on his reappearance, but we said that before. And he was the horse I had in mind for this race at the start of the season when I heard that he was probably going to go for the race. So for all that was massively disappointing, I think had he always gone well first out, I'd be more worried than I actually am. Fundamentally, he's the best horse in the last, that I could find in the last 7 years to have ever run in the race, rated 169. Traditionally, or certainly of late, the top weights are rated 160. I know that means he's carrying a lot of weight, but I think we had a 162 shot running this a few years ago, which was Ballyoptic. God knows how he was ever rated 162, but he was. But a Hoy Senior was rated 169. I don't think in behind him. I don't think it's a very good race, as in without an out class in it. I don't think there's a lot of seriously good animals in there, and he is by far the best horse in the race. Obviously, that's countered by the fact that he's hugely inconsistent and seems to absolutely loathe the build up to Christmas and then seems to get better in the spring. So that's why you're getting a half decent price. If you want to try and dig for positives, he did win on second start a few seasons ago, and that came at this track. All right, it was a 4-1 runner race where he got to dominate, but he has won second up in the past. But ultimately, at 17.0, I'm willing to chance him because he's a seriously classy animal, and the drop into a handicap might just be a stroke of genius from the team. That said, we might know our fate at the second fence. So 17.0 for me, Ahoy Senior. 4 big prices going up in that. It's certainly an open renewal anyway. The 140 then, we'll go back in time, 2.5 mile handicap hurdle. I'm interested, a couple of you going for North Lodge here off the back of a big old absence. And it's Stephen Dan again. Get a room. Dan, first of all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that absence, I think, is factored into his price. And to be honest, it probably is a bit too much, because I think if you look at the rest of these, if you're talking about a horse who could progress to be better than a handicapper, he'd be top of the list, probably alongside Jet Powered. But Jet Powered is just so difficult to assess that almost just look straight past him, to be honest, considering he's also market leader. See, there is a concern about the absence, but you go back to his novice form and it is very, very strong. He won a grade 2 at Cheltenham, beating Balco Coastal. He was second at Kelso, giving away £5 penalty with the 142 rated Bold Endeavour, 8 lengths behind him that day. And then third in the Mersey at Aintree behind Mai Tai and Free Stripe Life. He's only 11-2 for that grade 1 as well. So that kind of shows you what was thought of him. And obviously now runs at a handicap of 142 against a few who are far more exposed than he is. Obviously, there is a concern about how is he going to be after 600 days off the track, but Stable Tours seem to be pretty positive about him. He's been back in work for a long time. He's looking well. The old cliches you get in all the Stable Tours, but that's as good as you can kind of hope for. And I just thought, given that he was nearly a double-figure price and maybe just still is holding on to that slightly, I thought that was too big about a horse who, for all that he has the absence to overcome, probably has as much potential as any of these to be better than his mark.
Steve.
Yeah, I don't think absences mean much these days, especially when you've got trainers of the like of Alan King who've got more than enough facilities to get horses fit first time up, and in many respects, horses with problems, you wouldn't want to take them to the track unless they were virtually there. So I think, like Dan said, he's got the potential to be a little bit better than a handicap. He was a horse in novice hurdles who was certainly suggesting he was going to be that way. I suppose his problem is going to be that the fact that there's not all that many graded races over 2.5 miles. There seem to be 2 miles or 3 miles, but while he's in handicaps, he can make a bit of hay, and I think he's got a decent chance. And I mean, the thing is, Jet Powered, he's been off 336 days. What's the difference between being off 336 days and 602 days? Very little.
Yeah, I think that. I guess I think that's fair. I guess if you've been off if you've been off nigh on a year, you've had a setback anyway, haven't you? It's different to being off from the back end of one season to the start of a new one. But I absolutely take that point. Don,
I thought his run in the Silver Trophy at Chepstow was a really good run. He led from early, and he travelled like the most likely winner to the second last, and then got overhauled by horses who were ridden further back, either in mid-division or worse. And even after he was passed, he kept on to retain fourth place. He was really strong in the market before the Conditional Jockeys Handicap Hurdle at the Cheltenham November meeting. He fell early on that day, so obviously we don't know how he would have fared. But the horse who finished 7th in the Silver Trophy, American Sniper, he won that race, and he got a £6 hike for that. Uncle Bird gets the race off the same mark as the Silver Trophy mark, so I think he could be a well handicapped horse now. He's only 6. He's only run 9 times over hurdles, 9 times under any code in his life. And yeah, I think obviously you have to allow him his fall the last day. Obviously he's running, he should be none the worse for that, and it's a fairly quick turnaround. But yeah, I think he was a progressive horse anyway. I think he can be marked up on his run in the Silver Trophy, and yeah, I think 125, he's got the potential to be better than that now.
I'm with 21.0 shots Sebastopol, only on the angle that he tends to be very best off a little bit of a break. This is only 73 days, but I like the fact he's been kept away from the track, and he has looked a much better horse or more consistent since reverting to the smaller obstacles. He's a course winner as well, and his young conditional rider looks very, very capable, claiming 7. I missed you, Dan. Sorry. What did you want to add to Steve's comments?
I think I already went, didn't I?
You did.
I'm so impactful. You just forget me. I'm just
testing you. I'm just testing you. So that's good. We move on to the Dan can edit that out. We move on to the intermediate handicap known as the Jerry Fielden. 2 shots for Under Control here. Dan, you're a no bet. Don, come in.
Yeah, look, she's short, Tom, but I think it's hard to be against her. She was so progressive last season. She won the big novices final at Sandown when, she only got home by a half a length from Iberico Lord, her stable companion, but she had way more in hand than that. She was well named in the race. It just looked to be running over everything on the run up the home straight, all the way from the second last flight. And she got to the front, she kicked clear, then she just idled. It was a wee bit of a worry if you were on, I'm sure, which I wasn't. But Iberico Lord stayed on well at the run-in, and the pair of them finished nicely clear of Arkub. And Iberico Lord, obviously, he's enhanced that form by winning the Greatwood Hurdle on his return this season. She's only run 5 times. She's won 4 times out of 5. And yeah, look, the Jerry Fielden, it's a good race for her, an intermediate handicap. She got a fair hike now the last day. She got a £9 hike for winning the novices final, but that was more than merited. She's had a wind operation since, and I think she could be an exciting filly for the season ahead.
Steve?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with John. A bit short, but there's every reason why. Nicky Henderson's won 3 of the last 4, and he often wins this with good horses. If you go back to the likes of Bacchanal and horses like that. So... he was runner-up a couple of years ago with Captain Morgs, who isn't the most reliable beast. So he runs good horses in this, and I think this is the form certainly suggests that Under Control is one of those, and he's a real prospect that could be another one who steps out of handicaps. Nicky Henderson won with this Epatante not so long ago, so it's kind of a race that he does run horses that have the potential to go beyond handicaps.
I'm going to chance Hansard, who does fit the profile of young horse, second season at a Norris Company, who had some good form last year with the likes of In the Pocket, and I thought shaped pretty well behind Rubo last time. It just, I feel like a win play shout on him at the prices just makes me feel a bit more comfortable, but it's not the strongest shout. That's for sure. I'm sitting the last out. That's the 325. For the Jim John Memorial. Master Chewy 4.0, Realstone 5.0, 7.0, Elixir. That's bigger prices thereafter. A couple of shouts for Master Chewy. Steve, first of all.
He's doing it to me again. He's putting me out, and then he's not getting me back. Master
Feel
Chewy,
free to come in. Feel free to come in and defend yourself, Dan. But I know we're tight on time. But frankly,
we're very tight on time. But Steve is a compulsive liar. That's all I would say.
Superb. Carry on, Steve.
So a horse that, as we've seen in the past with a lot of Nigel Twiston Davis horses, they improve for going over fences. This horse won really easily first time up at Aintree, and then last time went a short price back at Aintree. Didn't really lose much in defeat that day because he's only beaten 3/4 of a length by a horse called DiGello, who was trained by Venetia Williams, who's got a really bright future. I think that's strong form, and I think Master Chewy will just win this.
Don.
Yeah, I think Realstone's a player, all right. He probably didn't have a huge amount to beat in the end. The last day, Pay the Piper and Shackleton were his two main rivals, and they underperformed. Obviously, Pay the Piper was pulled up, but he couldn't have been any more impressive than he was. The time was very good. It was faster than Racing Post Par, and it was a nice step forward from his run at Aintree. He came back at Aintree. He was very weak in the market. I think that was a race in which some of the fences were taken out in the home straight, and he just kept on to finish fourth in that race that DiGello won. But he came forward from that the last day. He was stronger in the market the last day, and I think there could be more to come from him. He's back. He's up to a mark of 131, which is £8 higher than the mark up which he won at Haydock. But it's kind of writing him up after you're kind of guessing how much they get. I thought I'd put in £10 for him, so he got £8. So you can't argue with that. But like he's 8 years old now, but he's likely raced. He's only had 6 runs over fences, as well as 6 runs over hurdles, so there should be more to come from him. And I do think he's a horse who could continue to improve.
And Dan, back to Master Chewy.
Yeah, I just think he's quite a rock solid favourite here, to be fair. Obviously, he did create a very good impression on his chasing debut. I think last time out, obviously, the race at Aintree after that, the fences taken out in the home straight would have probably hurt him more than any other horse, given how well he jumped on his chasing debut. So I don't think there's any shame in going home to that Jello of Venetia Williams. Obviously, she's flying along, and obviously, he's a rock solid proposition in his own right. Obviously, I think they've raced off the same terms here, Realstone and Master Chewy. So I think, obviously, for all that Realstone improved last time out, I thought that race fell apart, and I still think Master Chewy's got a bit more to give.
All right, going over to Newcastle. We're just going to have a very, very quick line on the fighting fifth, because we're all saying watch and enjoy effectively. I just wanted to ask the panel a question. Do we think, as Dan's cat makes an appearance, hello, do we think that Constitution Hill will go unbeaten for the rest of his career?
No. There'll be a time when he starts to decline, but not for a while.
Okay, so at what point, if you believe he will get beat, when do you lay the horse? Because he's 6 on for this race. He's going to have 4 starts this season, so you've got a few goes.
You lay him when you think he's going to be beaten, I'd say. Probably,
but you never think he's going to be beaten, right? He's not a horse who you ever think is going to get beat until he gets beat.
Ever? What? When he's 26, you don't think he's ever going to be beaten? That's a stupid bloody question.
What? So do you think
what's going to happen next? Do you? If he scrambles home by a short head on Saturday, then you can think, oh well, hello. But at the moment, he's not going to be beaten by the horses that are against him in the fighting fit.
Okay, how many starts will he have this season, Steve? 4?
Yeah, I'd say probably.
And
Five,
if
maybe?
if he stays at the if he runs to if he stays injury free and if he wins this race how he should, he's going to go off a similar price next time, maybe even shorter. But if you think he might get beat at some point this season, just on statistics and the fact that he's a jumps horse and they just don't go unbeaten, do you just have a dart and lay him?
You've changed the goalpost a little bit from will he go unbeaten in his whole life to he's going to go. Is he going to go unbeaten this year? If you think he's going to be beaten this year or this season,
Well,
it's the goalpost a little bit, isn't it?
So there's no chance we're going to oppose Constitution Hill in a race like this, right? Just
what's we? What's the what? Why don't if you want to lay him, crack on, lad.
I'm just wondering when there's got to be a point where you look at him and go,
He's
going to
not
be
when you
beaten.
look at him. It's when you look at the race and you think, I think he's vulnerable. That's when you do it. There's no point looking years down the line or even next season until you know what he's achieved, the level that he's run to this season. At this point, he looks unbeatable.
That graphic is not accurate. I'm sort of flirting with the fact that I think he'll be beaten. So how many darts do I get at it at this sort of price?
But you're suggesting that he's going to be 1-6 his whole career. He's not going to be, because at some point, some other horse is going to come along, and like Sprinter Sakura look unbeatable in his career. Look what happened. He did astonishing well to come back, but you wouldn't have been able to lay him at 1-6 when he wasn't running up to the form of him previously.
That's a very, very good point, Steve. I really enjoyed you brought that up, because what price was he when he got beat?
Yeah, maybe
2 to 9. 2 to 9. And thank you. You've made my case. Thanks, Steve. I'm so glad you brought up Sprinter Sakura.
He was running at that form. Oh, you're an.
There you go. Right. Excellent. Right. Let's move on. 2 to 9. Let's move on. Let's move on to the rehearsal. Steve, come in. Who do you fancy for the rehearsal?
I can't remember. Another look. Now, I remember this will go a long way back. I remember this one of my great racing days. I think it was December 89. And Josh Gifford had 4 winners on the card at Cheltenham's December meeting. And one of them was a horse called Volcatini, who I think was something like 11-4, maybe. If that's correct, my memory is still very sharp. And the previous week, he'd been favourite for the Tingle Creek to beat Desert Orchid, and he's refused to race.
And start, yeah.
And so the market overreacted to that. I don't think it's overreacted to Shishkin not wanting to know last week. In fact, given the attitude of Shishkin last week and the fact that he's done it before, I think if you look back now, I know they said there was problems when he dropped anchor going to the first at Cheltenham in the Champion Chase. I wouldn't want to be backing a horse at this price, even though he could win quite easily on his best form. I wouldn't want to be backing him. And I think the next best is Empire Steel, who's a pretty reliable horse who doesn't quite. He ran in the Scottish National. He ran well in the Scottish National. I don't think he stays that far. And I think 3 miles 2 on his return stretches him. I think 2 miles 7 around Newcastle will be perfect. With that run under his belt, I think he'll reverse form with Elvis Mail. So Empire Steel.
I'm recommending you back Shishkin at 2.65, genuinely. And when he starts, because he will start with the cheek pieces off, you lay off your bet, because I think he could come into nigh on even money, and then you get a free bet on Shishkin running around. So that's how I want to play it. If he doesn't start, you can give me dog's abuse, Steve. Any other weekend bets? Dan, just you.
Yeah, a couple away from the main action over in England anyway. So the 206 at Doncaster, horse called Joe the Dancer for Ben Pauling, who they thought the world of last season, was looking very impressive when falling in his point-to-point. He had, was it Fern's Lock, I think, was the horse he was about to beat by 10, 15 lengths in that point. Obviously, he's one of the best hunter chasers around. Didn't really happen for him last season. Went off short price for his novice hurdle debut and backed out. Did eventually win, but didn't live up to the hope of what they expected. But he's had a quite comprehensive wind surgery over the summer, which they hope have sorted out his issues. A Stable Tour quote is, "If we can only get half of his ability out, we'll be very happy. We have to hope his winds hold together or we have no hope." Which isn't exactly ideal, but he's the type of horse, given that he's so lowly rated off 117, his potential far exceeds that on his chasing debut. He's obviously built for this job. If you're going to give him a chance, it's going to be this, when he's probably going to be a reasonable opening price because he's got a bit of an unreliable reputation. If he does maintain that ability and his wind can hold together, he's far better than these off his current mark as well. And then over at Fairyhouse on the Sunday, obviously 2 great days of racing at Fairyhouse. A mare who I will get to win a race. She should have won last time out. I hope he'll be this weekend instead. It's Foxy Girl. Obviously, 3rd in her handicap debut last time out in a decent little race. She could not have been in a worse position all the way around. Buried on the inside. Could not get a clear run to save her life whatsoever. And then came widest of all to finish and staying on 3rd. Only up £2 for that. I think she's still got far more scope than mark 125. Obviously, the declarations aren't out, but I can't see why she wouldn't run. And she will win one of these big handicaps. And I would say you'll probably see her in the Mares Handicap at the Dublin Racing Festival later in the season.
Matchbook Zero long shot. Matchbook Zero sees the markets go live at 10 a.m. every day. They are win-only bets, but you'll most likely be getting best odds with the nature of exchange anyway, let alone Matchbook Zero, which has 0 margin and 0 commission. If you want a win-only bet, head to Matchbook Zero because almost certainly best odds coming your way. Don, your best bet, your Matchbook Zero long shot is?
Yeah, it's in the Carl Gold Cup, Tom. Stolen Silver. Just think there's more to come from him over this type of trip.
Mine is a Hoy Senior in that same race. Dan?
I'm glad I didn't go for the Coral Gold Cup now. I go with North Lodge in the 140, the 2-mile handicap, 2.5-mile handicap hurdle. I think the market is overestimating his absence.
And Steve?
Well, it's Twig in the Coral Gold Cup, but as Don has gone that way as well, I will go for on the Friday Espoir de Rome.
Okay, lovely. Moving on to best lays, we've got just the one lay, which is yours, Steve, at Musselburgh on Friday.
Yeah, it's just that there's no prices out at the moment, so it's a bit up in the air. The trade paper put in Moonlight Glory at 3.0, and I just thought that the quick turnaround, the inexperienced jockey, and the fact that Moonlight Glory's all of his best form has come on stiff tracks, and he's now spinning around Musselburgh, which I think is to get him out under a penalty. So I'd definitely be against Moonlight Glory. I thought it was a mare's race, and I changed my mind. If she is around that 3.0, I would be definitely taking her on. All
right, best bets. I think we've got one per race accurately here. Don, first of all, your best bet, please.
Yeah, Marble Sands in the John Frankham Chase. I think the step up and trip from 2 miles back up to 2.5 suit.
Steve, your best bet?
Master Chewy, 325 Newbury Saturday.
I'm with Flight Deck at 21.0 Newbury on Friday, just to wind Dan up. Your best bet?
And well done. Good job at that. I'll go with Foxy Girl, the free turn at Fairyhouse on the Sunday.
Thanks, everyone. Great stuff. I hope you have a very enjoyable, profitable weekend. Steve, Dan, Don, great stuff. We've overrun a little, but there was a lot to get through, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Bye-bye.